All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell Podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course, and we are pleased to be joined by Mark Ewell, who is the Executive Director of the MHSAA, who's been a regular guest on this podcast. Mark, how are you?
Good to see you, Casey.
Okay, so you said earlier that you wanted to complete all 3 seasons. I know the winter sports season was kind of in doubt for a lot of people, but you ended up getting it done. Crowned all your champions this week. I know it wasn't easy, but what was it like to finally get to see all those winter sports get across the finish line when they did not get a chance to do so last year?
You know, it felt great for the kids, the coaches, and really the communities that were involved at large. You know, going back to August, our goal has been 3 seasons that all reach the finish line. Fall, it took us until January to complete that. For months, I've always thought that winter would be the most challenging, given the nature that everything except for ski is indoors. Lots of contact sports, probably of our entire grouping of sports. Winter has the most number of contact sports. And so, the long pause that we had through November and December finally got to restart in mid-January. For us to be able to complete our wrestling championships, which, that's a sport that some thought for months we could never do this school year. And then obviously finishing up basketball last week. It was certainly a challenge, but we just took things a day and a week at a time. And those kids got to the finish line, and hats off to everybody, our staff, the folks at both the Breslin Center, Van Andel Arena, the Wings Event Center in Kalamazoo. It was truly a team effort.
Yeah. So now spring sports are starting to kick off. I know you addressed the, a couple of weeks ago, I know the governor recommended that, youth sports, pause for 2 weeks. I know you guys have said we're not doing that. That's up to, I know some school districts have done that. What is your stance on that? And I know you guys, I know the spring sports didn't even get a season last year. So where's your kind of going on that?
So really, we kind of followed the lead of the governor. I think the governor, by not amending the order, which was mandating the shutdown, it was because the COVID situation was probably different in certain parts of the state and in different communities. She essentially left that decision to be made locally. Local businesses, local restaurant owners can determine whether or not they're going to stay open the next 2 weeks. School districts are going to determine what the school day looks like, as well as extracurricular activities. So we continued to move forward, knowing that some districts will pause, given their local COVID numbers and situation. But I think when it comes to spring sports, Casey, there's really 3 reasons why we're just going to keep moving forward. The first is that all of our spring athletes are being tested. MDHHS right now is requiring weekly testing. And with that guardrail in place, we feel like we can do spring sports and do them safely. The second big reason is all of our sports, 100% of our spring activity is outdoors. And we've all heard for months that outdoor congregation and activity is far safer than it is indoors. And then last but not least is our grouping of spring sports is far and away, when you compare it to fall and winter, the lowest risk group of sports. The only 2 contact sports that we have are girls soccer and lacrosse. And, those are much different than football. They're much different than wrestling. You could even say that with all of the skin-to-skin contact and in close quarters, it's much different than basketball in the winter as well. So, school districts are going to have local control. They know what their COVID dynamics are like better than anybody else. And we'll just continue to move forward. We're going to keep all of our spring tournament dates where they're at. And as we have since August, we'll just take things literally on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis.
Okay, so I know that, how, as of right now, how many districts have paused that you know of?
I don't have those numbers. If I had to guess when it came to athletics that we've heard of, we're at 80 to 90% of our school districts are continuing forward with spring sports, really for the three big reasons that we mentioned.
Okay. So I know that, you know, when spring sports are up, and I know that now that the vaccine is, you know, widely available, is there a scenario that you guys are talking about that requiring athletes to get vaccinated by the time we get to fall next year, or where do you guys stand on that?
We have not even had that conversation yet. So certainly you hope that, you know, folks take advantage of their access to the vaccine, because it not only keeps themselves safe, but it really protects those, you know, those that you love around you. But in terms of putting requirements in place, that hasn't even been a conversation yet, just because teenagers right now, you know, while they're going to be eligible for the vaccine, very, very soon, what we're hearing, if they're not in some parts of the state already, we're going to kind of cross that bridge when we get to it. But I don't anticipate us requiring a vaccine for sports when school districts wouldn't be requiring something like that for the school day.
Okay. You know, really kind of going into, you know, the spring sports, a lot of those are tournament sites finalized for a lot of those spring sports. Are we going to see, for example, is, you know, baseball and softball going to be, I know a lot of the state finals are going to be at Michigan State. I know that lacrosse state, look, I think boys lacrosse, I know it's traditionally been held at Howell. Girls lacrosse, I think it's, you know, been all over the place. Where do you guys stand on fall championship sites for spring sports?
So actually all of our sites and venues, we're staying at our traditional sites. We've gotten no information that we have to make a move or a change, which has been really good news. Michigan State has been a wonderful partner. You know, they not only handled a week of basketball semis and finals, but our competitive cheer finals for the first time ever were at Michigan State. That went very, very well. So no, us getting outdoors, again, I can't emphasize this enough. I think the heartburn of a lot of people when it's outdoor activity versus indoor activity is far less. And that's a good thing. And, you know, right now the current order limits those outdoor crowds to no more than 1,000, which, you know, in almost every spring sports scenario, Casey, we're never going to reach 1,000 spectators.
Right.
Again, the spring of our 3 seasons is far and away the smallest number of groups involved.
Yeah. So kind of going into, is there any spring sports that are required to wear masks?
So the two contact sports. So you've got girls soccer and you've got lacrosse. Those are the two contact sports where masking is required. All of our other spring activity, golf, tennis, track and field, those are all sports to where you're never face to face really with an opponent. You could say, well, in tennis you are, but you know, you're I don't think ever are within 6 feet of an opponent. And then baseball, softball, the times that those kids are closer than 6 feet, it's never face to face. It is incidental and fleeting moments, to use some words from the order. So no, 5 of our 7 sports are in the lowest risk category. So the masks are only required right now. And by the way, the masks are required at all other times. So that center fielder is not required to wear their mask when he or she is playing center field on defense. But when they come to the dugout for the half inning, then the mask needs to go on. So it's when you're engaged in active participation in the non-contact sports, you got to wear the mask at all other times, except when you're in the game, during your race, during your round, right. Whatever the case may be.
Okay. So, you know, going into, I know that, you know, as we get ready for, you know, what have you heard from, like, you know, fall, winter coaches on how seasons went? What are they saying about any of this? And do you see like any like schedule changes, like condensing, like we saw with basketball with 3 games during the week, or do you see going back to the traditional schedule?
We're going to hopefully get back to a schedule that looks a lot more traditional. I think there's some elements that might be worth hanging on to, or at least having a conversation about. You know, I know for a fact that you talk to a lot of our athletic directors that, you know, the biggest thing, and even wrestling coaches, the toughest thing in wrestling are those all-day tournaments that start at 8 a.m. on a Saturday and don't finish until 8 or 9 p.m. on a Saturday night. Well, this year, you were limited to no more than 4 schools at this site. And we've even got some wrestling coaches saying, you know what, it was great to start a Saturday morning invite at 9 a.m. and be out of there by 1 o'clock. You know, it gave them time to spend time with family or to do some other things. So we're keeping a list of things that we had to do because of COVID that might be worth hanging on to. So we have a board meeting early next month, and so we'll kind of work our way through that list. But no, Casey, in terms of scheduling and dates and those kinds of things, we are hoping and praying that next school year is really a return to some kind of normal.
Are you guys making plans currently right now if those plans change?
So we're going to plan for a normal fall next year. I think the thing that we've learned this year is that we can be pretty flexible and adaptable on the fly. That, you know, when dates got moved by our state government, you know, we were able to follow up a lot of times within minutes with those new sets of dates. But no, I'm hoping football next year is Thanksgiving weekend in Detroit. I'm hoping that volleyball's the weekend before that. And then again, with winter sports, that certainly is going to be, I think, the biggest challenge next school year as well, if we're still dealing with COVID issues.
Okay, I just want to make sure, I want to clarify something. Baseball and softball finals are at Michigan State at their respective fields. Boys lacrosse, where is that at this year? Is that at Howell again?
So it has been at Howell. This is typically the time of the year to where we confirm that is in fact where we're going. Girls lacrosse has kind of bounced around the state. Yeah. It's some different venues. So again, each year our goal in spring is different because you're not having to reserve, you know, a 10 or a 15 or a 20,000 seat venue. So usually by May 1st, we like to have all those sites nailed down. Our tennis finals, for example, some of our colleges aren't yet wanting to have outside groups on campus. So that may force us to do tennis a little bit differently in terms of facilities. Our group of golf courses that we use, they're all right back in the mix. And depending on the year, those divisions will rotate and move around. Track and field, we are looking at the 4 facilities in the greater Grand Rapids area. Okay. We've got kind of a stable of 6 or 7, and they kind of rotate around each year. But you expect that track is going to be in Grand Rapids. So again, we'll have the exact, and it's not even so much the exact venues, Casey, but it's, you know, what division is going to be at which golf course, what division in track is going to be at, for example, Rockford or Houseman Field, which are 2 of the normal facilities. So no, it looks to be a fairly normal spring in terms of those final venues. Girls soccer will be right next to baseball and softball at Old College Field at Michigan State as well. So hopefully we can get through April and May and get to tournament time in June. And yeah, and that'll be the time, I think, where everybody can hopefully catch their breath and say, this was a very interesting school year. Yeah, we got everything to the finish line, but sure wouldn't want to do this again. So yeah, for next year to look more normal.
Okay, so, you know, kind of going into this, I know there's a lot of spring athletes that, you know, well, they're finally getting their seasons and stuff. What is, you know, there's been a lot of things that are happening in the state. What's your message to everybody right now that's kind of like, you know, finally it's here and we're still kind of going through all this and stuff and all that?
I think the message is to appreciate and enjoy every day that you get. You know, back in the fall, once we were given permission to start, I think we all assumed, well, we'll just end at the normal times. And then another, you know, stoppage came up, and, you know, some of the reaction when the governor's office or the health department has had to pause or delay activity this year has been, I mean, it's been very emotional. And what this really shows, Casey, is just how important the high school athletic experience is to so many people. And I would hope that, like with a lot of things, is you really maybe don't appreciate and you don't really understand what a privilege it is until that's kind of taken away. And I know, you know, with my own son's case, he's a senior baseball player right now. He just loves every day. Every day that we're outdoors and I can go to practice, that's a great day. Every day that we've got a doubleheader scheduled, that's a great day where we can get outside. And so I've even seen that in my own kid. He's just a lot more appreciative in trying just to take in every single day, because you know that nothing is guaranteed. And that's been a big lesson, I think, of the last year as well. So hopefully that also gives some moms and dads some perspective as well, that at the end of the day, it really is all about getting our kids a chance to play. And maybe we'll be a little less critical of the coach, or we'll be a little less critical of the umpire, the officials. Hopefully that the last 13 months has given all of us a little bit better perspective on what's really important.
All right. Mark Ewell, thank you so much for coming on, and thanks for all you do for high school athletics.
Thanks, Casey.